Hello and welcome back to So Much Game in my playthrough of Empire of the Sun Turn 2, which is more than long overdue, partially because a rampant toddler decided to move a fair amount of the pieces on the board and I had to gather the will to put them back and, well, hopefully put them back in the right place and try again. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I think from this turn onwards, although I may only just play this turn and maybe turn 3 if I get a chance, I'll be splitting the videos up a bit more into shorter segments. Obviously the previous one was almost 2 hours long, which is a bit too long for one sitting. Hopefully we'll come in around the half hour, 3/4 of an hour mark per video. So probably turn 2 will end up being like split into 2 parts. Other than that, I think we're roughly good to go here. Right. So we're heading into turn 2 now. With the previous attack on Pearl Harbor and the Japanese invasion of most of these parts of Southeast Asia. It's now between January and April 1942. And we'll run through the sequence of play with you. Whenever I come up on something we haven't gone through before, I'll try and explain it a little bit, run through it with you, and then hopefully we can both learn the game as we go, because there's a good chance that I'll have forgotten a lot of things now. So the next part of turn 2 is the reinforcements phase. That starts with the reinforcement segment, which is, if you can see it, by the way, I've had a little bit of an upgrade in camera and hopefully in sound, so you should be able to hear and see everything a bit better than the previous video. Anyway, that group over there, that will be, this line here will be all of the reinforcements for turn 2. Now, the rulebook states that the Allies place their reinforcements first, but obviously the Allies also have a fun little problem here with the War in Europe track, which means that some reinforcements will be delayed and others may potentially be sent to Europe. It's currently at 0, so that means that's level 1 of reinforcement delays. There's one unit that somehow didn't end up near, and there's still a few units that aren't quite in the hexes they're meant to be, but we'll deal with them as we go. Anyway, level 1 of War in Europe. For the most part, it means that in the rulebook it says Allied reinforcements are delayed, but on the map it says US reinforcements are delayed, which I'm going to go with the rulebook, obviously, because that's the rulebook, so I assume it's correct. Which would mean that everything on here that is Allied, I'll start bringing them over to you so that we can get a look. So what we've got here for the Allied reinforcements this turn, battleship, that'd be nice. The Northampton cruiser and some US Army units. These are Commonwealth units. That would be a nice reinforcement for all the way over there for the British, well, the Commonwealth troops in India and around Burma, and then some Marine Special Forces and the like. Now, as far as I can tell from the rulebook, right, so if you can read this bit down here, try and get that in as it says there, Allied reinforcements can be delayed, and Allied player receives all reinforcements, delayed blocks, and so forth. So it really is focusing on all Allied troops. It even says here unit types that cannot be delayed, HQ units and US B-29 aircraft. So that means even these Commonwealth units are going to go to the delayed box. This whole bunch of units here, and it's unfortunate, except for this one little HQ unit, which is Southeast Asia Command, I think. We'll take all of these, put them over here in the delayed reinforcements box that you probably can barely see on the video, but I'm going to try and not move the camera around too much this time so that you can see the whole thing. It should be higher resolution now, so you could probably make out the units a fair bit better than before. And all of these units go, and this one. Now, US Army units. Another part of the War in Europe track is that US Army units and certain US Navy units can be sent off to Europe to fight. In level 1 of the War in Europe track, that basically comes down to a dice roll of 0 to 1, and if of 1, yeah, sorry, not 0 to 1, just a 1, a roll of a 1. If units are sent to Europe, then they're placed in the reinforcement track 3 turns later. So they can come back, but they could also potentially be sent back to Europe again. So we'll start rolling for this unit. That's alright, they're just delayed. And that unit, 3, 7, 2. Well, we're in luck. So all of those units go to delayed reinforcements and won't participate in this turn, but at least they're not sent to Europe, so they will come in the start of next turn. Right, so that just leaves me with Southeast Asia Command to place. Let's see. What command? We've got command up here, haven't we? I think somewhere. No? Okay then. It kind of makes it an easy choice. I thought there was a command up there, but there isn't, as far as I can tell. So, Southeast Asia Command will be heading to Europe. to Europe. Southeast Asia Command will be heading to India or Burma. I think Burma is probably a bit risky, so I'm going to send it all the way up to Dhaka. Now, those units have a command unit. Okay. And now for the Japanese reinforcements. Now, the Japanese get fairly few reinforcements throughout the game in comparison, as you can tell if you take a look over there. You can't really see it anymore properly because my webcam moved a bit. But they either start off with most of their strongest units on the board, or they come in quite quickly, like the Yamato. Now that's a powerful battleship fleet. And another naval air unit, that's always handy. And an army unit. Right. What we're going to do with that? I think, for now, put the Yamato up there. Now, reinforcements have to be brought in near within activation range of a HQ. That they have to be in supply, and as far as I know, they can't be in an enemy zone of control. So we're going to mainly thinking for the army unit. Obviously the navy air unit has a bit more range on it, so I can probably rebase it to where it needs to be when it comes down to it. But the army unit will have to be shipped somewhere or moved somewhere, so I want it to be fairly close at hand for when I need it. Although I'm thinking maybe it might be more useful for me using it against the Dutch East Indies, but I think I'm probably gonna start it off over here because I want to build up against. See, this is another one of those situations where things have moved. I want to build up against the Commonwealth units and try and take Rangoon, obviously being a resource hex. As for the air unit, be handy if them. That could come in handy actually. Is there HQ? Really what we want to think about is what areas we're trying to shut off with zones of control as well. For instance, if I put it there, then that's two. There's about an area like that around that is shut off with an overlap to, you'll have some air units there. No, I kind of think I like that idea because mainly it sort of puts these two units in a zone of control. I'm going to use that one to help attack there. I'll put that one up there as well, and then, to be honest, if necessary, I can use it for further attacks up there. and I can also use it to help overpower the Malaya command in Kuantan, which we also really are definitely going to capture this turn as the Japanese. If not, I think we'll have started off horrifically. Right, Japanese reinforcements done, and then it's the replacement segment. This is where the difference between the Japanese and the Allies really becomes quite apparent as well. At the strategic level, the Allies pretty much always have replacements, ground replacements, air replacements, but the Japanese only get a few scattered naval replacements, and all other replacements pretty much come through cards drawn from the strategic deck. So the Allies go first again, as usual, and the Allied player, it says here, I don't know if you can read that, but it says here Allied 2 ground, 5 air, 1 US naval. But the Allied player gets 1 additional US naval replacement per turn if they control Oahu, and 1 Commonwealth naval replacement in turn 6, 9, 12 if they control any of a bunch of hexes up there that are Commonwealth controlled. So basically I have 2 ground replacements, 5 air replacements, and 2 naval replacements. Which a lot of them are going to go to waste because there will be several units that I cannot actually reinforce. Once again, if you watched through the first video with me, with the first time, there are a lot of units that are pre-war units, and those units can never receive replacements. So they will get damaged, they will get destroyed, but they will never be reinforced or replaced. We'll go through it. Well, one thing I can definitely do is use the air replacements on those units that got damaged and destroyed in the attack on Pearl Harbor, so we'll do that in a minute. But I just want to see ground units, if there are really any that are damaged that can actually accept a replacement at the moment. I don't think there are. I would be quite surprised. That seems like kind of wasted. That's an air unit. A bit of a generally wasted amount of replacements. No. Right. So air. We're going to bring this guy back on the board. You'll remember him from last time. He got destroyed. And so that would be from eliminated to reduced is 1. Flipping back to full is 2. I'm going to flip this one back to full as well. It's 3 air points. And allies, what else have you got? Pretty sure the rest are not going to be eligible or are actually undamaged at the moment anyway. Yeah, I'm not seeing any. There was a Marine Air Force unit in Wake, but that got destroyed and it was a pre-war unit, so it can't come back anyway. I think for Allied Air that's pretty much it. And then we have 2 US naval replacements. 1 because the replacement chart says so, and 1 because you get 1 anyway. Right, in that case, I think that brings us to the naval replacements. That'll be a bit of an easier choice. There's 2 carrier fleets over here in Hawaii that can be reinforced. The Enterprise and the Lexington. So they were both reduced, they're now both at full strength. Once again, to reiterate, the stacking limit for a hex is a HQ, free of any ground and air units. So you could have 2 air like here and 1 ground, 2 ground, 1 air, 3 ground, 3 air, whatever, and 6 of any naval units obviously in the hex that is eligible for them with a naval base, and an air base for the air units. There we go. So the Allies are looking to start attacking from out of Pearl Harbor. Just one note, this unit here is damaged, but once again, it's a pre-war unit, so it couldn't have taken any of the 2 replacements anyway. So a lot of these American units in the Philippines, in the Dutch East Indies and so forth, well, I moved that there, I think, from after it lost a naval battle. They can't take any form of replacements. They start the game, but they probably won't finish it. Right, and then Japanese replacements is an easy one. There are none. So there you go. After that, we go to the strategic warfare segment, which is important for the amount of cards that are dealt during the course of the next phase, which is the draw strategy card phase. Basically, as it stands now, up until turn 4, Japan receives 7 cards anyway, regardless of how many resources hexes are in their control, because they're using their strategic reserve of resources to guarantee themselves sufficient cards, in this case. In real life, just sufficient logistical power. The Americans, well, the Allies, on the other hand, start this turn with 5 cards. They'll start the next turn with 6 cards, and then the turn after that, at turn 4, they'll finally be up to 7 cards. There is, however, one thing that can affect the Japanese amount of cards, and that happens during the strategic warfare segment, and that will be US submarine attacks. So they're strategic submarine warfare. You roll a dice. I'm just gonna grab the results table so that I can run through it with you. It's not on that one, silly me. I'll probably be on this one over here. Those things up. Political will. Submarine warfare. There we go. So what it says there is roll a d10. If it is lower than the current game turn, then the Japanese draw is reduced by 1 card. They can never go below 4 cards. In addition, the Japanese player permanently loses 1 amphibious shipping point, which, if you remember from last turn, they start the game with 7 points and it can only ever be reduced, whereas the Allies start the, I really have to stop saying the Americans. The Allies start the game with 0 in turn 1, and get one each new turn. So this turn they'll have one amphibious shipping point. Righty-ho. So we're going to roll for that. There's an additional effect this turn because the allied player adds 1 to the dice roll for all 1942 game turns due to defective torpedoes. Now that's something I've heard about as well. The torpedoes in 1942 weren't as fantastically effective as they would be later in the war. And as I recall, the factory that built them claimed, and it was definitely more claimed than the actual truth, that it was the submariners misusing the torpedoes rather than the fact that they shipped them defective ones. Obviously that got sorted out later in the war, luckily, and we'll go for it. Well, damn. It's not a good day to be Japanese, apparently. So that's a 0. It's +1 because of defective torpedoes, but the game turn is turn 2 now, so that means that this is lower than the game turn, and the Japanese are going to lose 1 amphibious shipping point, and they're also going to lose 1 card in a minute. Another thing to mention with these strategic cards is obviously the the Allies have 5 cards this turn rather than 7. So in addition, they're going to get 2 passes, which means at any point after the Japanese play a card, it'll be the Allied turn to play a card, and they can say, no, we're going to pass it for this, and then it will revert back to the Japanese. You have 2 of those you can use this turn, and obviously next turn when they have 6 cards, they'll only have 1. Right, and the Japanese will actually also get a pass because they will only be drawing 6 cards because of the result of US strategic submarine warfare, which did its job apparently. Right, we'll draw the cards now. I've already pre-shuffled the deck. If you don't believe me, tough. I'm not going to shuffle it again. It's a big deck. I'll give you an idea. That's a fair old deck of cards for selecting 7 a turn and then reshuffling them in at the end of the turn. Right. So I'm not sure if the Allies or the Japanese get their cards first, but I don't think it really matters at the moment as I'm playing myself. So that's 4, 5, 6. We'll have a look at them quickly as well. First, convoy escort fleet. So each card has an offensive card value, which is like a local offensive, and a event card, well, an event with an event logistics value, and also the 2 intelligence numbers. So that would be if you play it as an offensive, that would be if you play it as the event. In this case, the event first, convoy escort fleet. Activation combined fleet only. Logistics 2. Bonus, the Japanese player places the escort marker on the game turn track on its 2 side or flips the escort marker to its 4 side. Well, that is actually rather useful, and I may want to consider using that as the event, even though it has a low logistics value. Let's just set that down there. And as far as I know, what that does is that will add 2 in this case, because the escorts are at 2, to the American role for submarine warfare during the strategic submarine warfare phase. So that could be very useful. Basically, the escorts are helping with supply, well, protecting the supply shipping, as they should be. And so the strategic submarine warfare has a harder time of it picking out merchant ship targets. Now, what else have we got? Combined Fleet, Battle of Santa Cruz, any HQ logistics value 4, be a nice one. Only air and naval units may activate. Alright, effective. Increase Japanese carrier naval unit strength. Well, that's a nice one if I can, for instance, draw out the Lexington and the Enterprise and try and destroy them in a big air carrier battle and air fleet. Right. Operation Me, Battle of Midway. Oh, any HQ logistics value 8. All battles must be fought in 1 hex islands. So that's like these islands down here, the Admiralties, the islands in the Marshall Islands, the islands in the Solomon Seas, obviously Midway itself. Yeah, that could be a useful one. Yeah. Jane 25 code change. That's a reaction card. So the other ones were cards that were events that you could play instead of a offensive. This one either has an offensive value of 1, or you can play it as a reaction. If you play it as a reaction, you can change a surprise attack by the allies into an intercept, and you get to draw a card afterwards, so your card isn't wasted either. So that's a nice card to have. And then another reaction, a counter-offensive. Okay. Basically, I can, as a counter-offensive, create a naval battle using the same as the allied OC value, and set an intercept. And then, that's another nice card. High Altitude Interceptors, a resource card. I receive 2 air replacements. Used immediately, or they can be kept. So that's handy. And add 1 to strategic bombing die rolls until the allies control a supply eligible airbase within 5 hexes of Tokyo. Now, at the moment there won't be many strategic bombing rolls, I imagine. That's the B-29s, unless I somehow miraculously draw that card as well, but I don't think so. And certainly not this early in the game. I don't think it even can come into effect yet. I don't know, I'd have to check with the actual event card. Right, now we'll draw the allies 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And there we go. And what have we got here? A resource. New submarine doctrine. Oh, so basically, this is also one of those problems when you're playing yourself, because you obviously immediately know what you can do with cards. If you know that you, as the Japanese, have the opposite card, I can use this to cancel out that escort card. Japanese have drawn. Victor plans. MacArthur liberates the Philippines. And that looks like a rather large offensive, basically. 6. If Southwest Pacific HQ is involved, which is over there, or for all others it'll be logistics of 4. And obviously you always have the ability to use the card as an offensive. If you use the event, some events will stipulate that the card is then removed from the deck. If you use those cards for their offensive value instead, then they just get reshuffled in. But otherwise, all the cards just get reshuffled in at the end. You reshuffle the deck and pick more cards. Operation Forager. Yeah, that's another big... They've got a lot of big offensives, but I don't think this turn I really have enough to throw at the Japanese. And Operation Brewer, a surprise attack. No, that would be a nice one. It's a logistics value of 1 though. So that would be 1 plus whatever the HQ value is, but it would count as a surprise attack, as it says it here. So yeah, that's going to be a advantage, as they don't get to roll on the intelligence. And submarine attack, data taste as a reaction. So this one I can use to potentially damage or destroy a Japanese naval unit during a Japanese offensive as a reaction. That's a handy one. So lots of fun cards. And there you go. Right, now the offensive phase will begin. And basically the two sides will alternate playing offensive cards and carrying out offensives until the end of the game turn. Let me just look at the time. I think I will play through one offensive this video, maybe cut it there and play the rest of the offensives in the turn in a next video, which will hopefully also be up shortly then. And after that, obviously, we won't spend so much time going through the kickoff of each turn, as I think we've run that through quite thoroughly now. Okay, the Japanese have initiative, so I'm going to start with a Japanese offensive. Now, can't use any of those at the moment, so that's okay. Well, I could use them for... I might actually. For instance, this one is a nice free offensive card, and I don't really need the 2 air replacements yet. I know it'll be in the deck then, because otherwise it gets removed from play if I use the event, and I don't think we want to do that at the moment anyway. So that's probably going to be one that I'm going to play as an offensive rather than as a right, so I've decided on first convoy escort fleet as the first offensive card, in this case played as an event. And put that up there where you can see it a bit better. There we go. Or maybe I'll just hold it a bit closer. So activation, combined fleet only. That's that HQ up there. Logistics value of 2 plus its own logistics value of 3, so that'll be 5 units activating. And as a bonus, the Japanese player places the escort marker on the game turn track on its 2 side, or flips it to its 4 side if it's already there. That's important for submarine strategic warfare, as I mentioned earlier. Obviously, let me just put the marker there next to the gamepad. Obviously, we know that the Allied player has, I'll put it here out of the way, the a event card that can negate that, but taking into account playing as a Japanese player that doesn't know what cards the Allies had, it's probably one I would have played anyway. And I'm going to use the offensive to attack Manila, I think. So I can activate 5 units, and this HQ here, Combined Fleet HQ, is activated. And they have a range of 13, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, yeah, that's going to be out to about here somewhere. It's a fairly big radius. What I want to do, I think, what I want to do is I'm going to activate these units here. Do I want to activate the naval unit? Ideally I prefer them, but obviously that's a waterside hex, so they'd have to go up first. That's mixed terrain. The offensive card value is 3. So you probably can't see the chart down here, but I've got one of the other charts here. And there's this one actually. Maybe take a look, see if it has it in here. New. Well, in any event, a ground unit can move 1 hex per offensive value on the card. So in this case, they could potentially move 3 hexes. However, as you can see, a lot of the hexes cost more than 1 hex to move through, and most of the hexes on the map, these green ones, are mixed. Open is are these clearer beige ones, so that is open, so I can move into there as mixed anyway. Well, that's mixed anyway, for 2 movement points, but to get up to here would be 2 movement points, and then I'd need another 2 to attack into there, so I won't be able to move that unit unless they're not in a port eye. So I'm gonna have to amphibious assault in, I think, from somewhere else. Let me find a nice unit in range and we use them. That's 2 units. What have we got up here? There's one. Maybe this unit. Yeah. We'll activate them. And then, this is the problem when you don't clip your counters and have thick fingers and thumbs. So we're gonna amphibious assault down into there. They have 15 hexes of movement, because for naval units the movement rate is 5 per 1 offensive value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They can reach there, that's not a problem. Let's take the Yamato out for a spin as well as a 4th unit. I have it now, might as well move it, might as well do something with it. It's a nice battleship. Because also I want to stack naval and air units against them, hopefully destroy the air unit that's in there during the air naval step, and then I'll get +4 for having being the only side with a naval unit and the only side with an air unit in the attack, which will come in handy on the rolls. Attack wise, I feel like that was a big that's a big unit. Okay, but I don't know, I feel like I need another one in there somehow, another land unit, because there's 2 units stacked in there at the moment. Let's see, have a look at them. 10 and 13. Doing 13 damage. They're only going to be able to knock off 1 step anyway. But also I have to do 20 in return. So the question is, do we want another land unit or another air unit in there? I think that's choice at the moment, or another naval unit, but not sure that's really necessary. What do you think? Can they reach down there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's going to be overkill. I'd prefer another land unit, to be honest. We can move them then, but they're also not a very powerful unit. Although I suppose if they lose a step, then potential attacking strength 13 could go up, obviously, if they roll high, but then they're not going to be able to damage one of them. Okay, we'll do it. So I'll activate this unit as well. Right, then the movement will be as followed. They're already in range, so I don't need to move them. I'm going to move them down to here, attacking into there. And then we'll spend a amphibious shipping point to amphibious assaults. Now the only problem there is they're going to halve their... No, seems probably best that there's another ground unit in there, because they're going to halve their defensive strength, which could be bad, but there you go. And they're going to move into there, and they're going to move 1 into there because that's open, and then 2, 3 into there because it's mixed. Right, now after we do all that, the defending player, the reaction player, gets to roll for intelligence. In this case we're using the event card, so they roll on the event intelligence score, which is 7, and also a unit moved through this zone of control, even though it's negated by that unit. A unit moved through the zone of control, so they get +2 on their roll. So there's a good chance that it will go from a surprise attack to a exchange, basically. Yeah. They get +2 to the score, so yeah, on a 9. Okay, so it's not a surprise attack. And we'll start with the air naval portion. I'm going to move these units out so that you can see them, see who's fighting who. And that might not be as important for this portion, but it will be. Let's see, can I know? Actually, that's true. So that, because it's not a surprise, they can activate HQ in the area. And I could potentially activate some units to help defend that, in which case, obviously, the obvious choice would be to activate this air unit here. Do I want to see? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to send that C unit in there to die. But they can reach over there. And they'll add. Don't know. There's not much point to that, is there? They could potentially just both be wiped out. I think it will be safer to leave them there. I mean, it's a unit. I can use it at some point, maybe, if I can move it somewhere to an Allied air base. Because yeah, that's overwhelming. Right, I'll start with the Japanese air naval roll. It's not a surprise attack, so they don't get +3, so those are basically the only modifiers. We'll see how they do. A fantastically bad 4, which means they're attacking at half strength, versus a 6 is at full strength, so that's 4 versus 10 and 18 defense. That's not going to be a problem, really. However, obviously, even attacking at half strength, it's a 9 and 11, so they're still doing 20 damage. It only has 10. That unit is wiped off the board. So it's also a pre-war unit, so it's never coming back. That basically achieves what I wanted to achieve, because then I'm guaranteed that nice +4 on my roll during the ground portion of the battle. I think it's also obviously clear that the Japanese won the air naval portion of that. I'll just get these out already. I appear to be mostly fingers and thumbs today, so that's unfortunate. There we go. And now we're taking on these 2 Allied units, American Army units stationed in the Philippines. Ground combat doesn't have a surprise attack anyway. Both sides roll, well, exchange step losses at the same time in any event, so definitely going to roll for both sides here anyway. And we'll see, we'll start with the Japanese. A 5, they get +4 because they have, I don't know, well, you can't quite see it, it's listed up here. Maybe try and find one of the charts it's on. Here you go. ground combat. So they rolled a 5, which would have been enough for 1 anyway. But they also get +2. The offensive player has naval, is the only player with naval units in the battle. They also get +2 if they're the only unit with active air units in the battle, which they are. However, in this case we get -2 because the defender is a mixed terrain. So that's a net +2, which lands on a 7, which, looking at that, is 1 and 1/2. Does that mean 7 and 8 are 1 and 1/2? Oh right, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's 1.5, which is also nice. And then for the defender's going to get +3 as reaction player because the offensive uses amphibious transports for this unit. They're amphibious assaulting into the side there. 3 + 3 will be a 1. So I think luck against my terrible judgment is on the side of the Japanese in this battle. And we'll have a see how that plays out. So, counting that up, 9, 18, and 4 is 31, times 1.5. Wow, it's, yeah. Is 46.5, so rounded up. It says to round up, so that's 47. Versus, yeah, their defense. That's going to do the damage I wanted it to do. And they're attacking back with 13. I'll start off just taking the damage off of them. So obviously 47 down to 37. Now they've both been received a step loss, so I can destroy them. Pre-war units, away they go forever and ever. 27 and down to 17. The rest is obviously lost at this point. However, these units will still take the 13 points of damage, and I think what I want to do there as the allied player is I'm going to flip this one. That's the best I can do, because obviously the Japanese don't really get ground replacements unless they move divisions out of China. So you can move divisions down, use them as replacements, or move divisions down and use them to create extra divisions. Yep, right. And build up your armies. Right, so I think it's fair to say that the Japanese won that and have taken Manila. That air unit's going to stay there. The Yamato, where shall I move that back to? Do we need to move it all the way back there? No, I think I'm going to leave it here at the moment with the Takao. And then we'll see if we can... Really what we want to do is use the overwhelming superiority in battleships and carriers at the moment to kind of grind down some of the American ships before they start washing in with all these reinforcements and all those replacement points that will let them carry over the tide. Right. Now, this HQ has been displaced as the Japanese have taken the hex it was in. There's obviously rules for that. I think I'll be cutting this out of 6.1. That was the one I wanted. It was there somewhere. Should have looked at it to start with. Involuntary. Nice. Right, so what happens to this unit is it doesn't have a dot on it. It's not pre-war unit, that's Southwest Pacific Command. They go onto the turn track one track further, one turn further, should I say. So they're going to return in turn 3. Now, this looks quite good for the Japanese, mainly because the Philippine surrender rule says you have to control Manila and Davao. So that means at the end of the turn, these units are all going to surrender, most of them pre-war units as well. So they're going to be wiped off of the map. I'll have to see if I can, as the Allied player, move some of them out in the hopes of using them another day in another battle. And that's going to be difficult because, yeah, obviously you've got a line here, you've got a hole, and there's some units behind there. So we'll have to think about possible escape there. Yeah, that concludes this little offensive here, which turned out quite successful. That also means, well, I'll count up the amount of resource hexes at the end of the turn, and then I'll add that. Well, I can add it now. Goes up to 5. Should be, well, I'll count it at the end, make sure that's correct, and hopefully I'll start pulling in some more resource hexes through the rest of the turn, because the Japanese will start needing them soon. Okay, and this one goes away. Now, as the Allied player, yeah, I've got fair few cards here. Well, I won't be liberating the Philippines this turn. For one thing, the HQ unit I need is not even there anymore. I think, to be honest, as the allies, I'm going to use one of my passes. What I'm mainly thinking about doing is I want to, as the allies at the moment don't have a lot on the board, to try and reinforce that way. As the Commonwealth units, I think there's not really much hope for the Malayan command there. And as the American forces over here, I want to draw out or try and get some of the Japanese Navy alone somewhere and hit them with the Enterprise and the Lexington. But we'll see how that works out, because obviously it needs to be done in, I'm thinking probably around here in the Marshall Islands, it needs to be done in such a way that a failed intelligence check won't end up with the Enterprise and the Lexington being knocked off the map. Right, as I said, I was just going to play that one offensive. I'm also going to do one US pass, so in part 2 I will be playing through the rest, and also they'll start off with another Japanese offensive. Okay, thank you for joining me again. Thanks so much, Gabe. If you have any comments, questions, or I've made any hideous mistakes that upset you so much that you just have to tell me about them, feel free to add any comments in the comment section. I'll read them and I'll let you know. And other than that, as usual, stay safe and stay gaming.